Hi, Georgina.
Hello.
So we finally got there, and
Yeah,
it is recording.
cool. It is on mine too.
Good. How are you?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Okay. Yeah, just managing, trying to not get stressed about Christmas and trying to just prepare myself for it.
Yeah, sounds familiar.
So I thought today's video we can share our experiences of coping with Christmas when you have a chronic illness or disability, and that includes kind of mental health, physical health, any kind of thing like autism, which I have. So just sharing our experiences of past Christmases, and also tips on how, like, tips we would like to share on coping with Christmas when you have a chronic illness or disability. So what's kind of like, what's Christmas like for you with your kind of chronic illness? And do you want to just give a bit of an introduction to yourself?
Yeah, so I'm Georgina, obviously. I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and functional neurological disorder is like my main two. And actually, the past 3 Christmases since I've been ill, I've actually not been able to participate properly. So, yeah. Do you want to do the same?
I'm Naomi. I'm 27. My illnesses are hypermobility spectrum disorder, which is very much the same as hypermobile Ehlers-Danlos. There is very few differences in the kind of conditions. I also have ME, which is myalgic encephalopathy, also known as chronic fatigue syndrome. I also have functional neurological disorder and autism. And they're my main illnesses that I deal with on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah. I find that we kind of just do the main ones whenever we have to like introduce ourselves and stuff. Because most of us have a long list.
My first time doing a collaboration, but I thought it would be good to kind of like, rather than just me sharing my experiences, I thought this topic would be a good one to kind of do a collaboration with you on, and I kind of spoken a bit over time over social media. So thank you for agreeing, and hopefully it'll be helpful to people on both our YouTube channels.
No, thank you for asking me. This is also my first collaboration, so
kind of first, maybe a few, possibly. We don't know. We'll see how this one goes.
Yeah.
So what's Christmas like for you with a chronic illness?
Quite complicated actually. I got sick in 2017. So Christmas 2017, I was just like unwell because I'd only been sick for about 11 months and I was still getting my head around trying to get used to it, and I wasn't diagnosed until last year, so I didn't know what was wrong with me, if it was going to be like a forever thing. And then 2018, I was actually in hospital. That was a very strange Christmas because I was in with my FND before I was diagnosed with FND, and they thought I'd had a stroke for a couple of days. So I couldn't talk, and the whole of my left side was paralysed. So I was just there texting people, and all I could really do was like smile at people, which is very weird. And then last year, so Christmas 2019, my FND was at its worst ever point. So I was having hundreds of seizures a day. I was dissociating all the time. And I really didn't interact with people as much as I had done in the past. How about you?
Yeah, so Christmas are quite complicated because with ME, I have quite limited energy levels. And with my FND, I also have quite a lot of seizures. And then obviously with autism, I find it hard with the change of routine and kind of like people, because I quite like quiet. And so it's kind of like trying to juggle kind of like what's going on in the house. And it's really hard to predict with my health, kind of like I'd never know when I'm going to have a seizure or when I'm going to go into spasm or anything like that. And I kind of always say that with chronic illness, there's no days off. So even on Christmas Day, you're kind of like opening presents and then all of a sudden you're on the floor having a seizure and everyone has to kind of like deal with it. And obviously kind of like with family who are a little bit like, my brother gets quite scared around my seizures, they freak him out. So he like obviously it's kind of obviously brain fog. Christmas is kind of like managing. So for me, it's kind of I have a schedule for my day to help me manage my activity and energy levels and rest periods. So I alter that a little bit for Christmas. And I think for Christmas with events, it's trying to decide what events to go to and which events to sit out of, or which ones just to make a brief appearance of, hello everyone, I'm just going to go now. And I have spent Christmases in hospital as well. And I do find that staff try to make it as nice an experience as possible, with obviously the fact that you're in hospital over Christmas. And last year I was in hospital over Christmas, but I was allowed a couple of days home. And I think as well, the other thing that's difficult at Christmas, I don't know whether you find this, is obviously like your support network of professionals. Either services close for the holidays and New Year and people go on annual leave, so you've got less support, so you can't really kind of contact somebody. Just you can't like say to your GP like, look, my seizures are getting worse or anything like that, because your GP is on holiday and the practice is closed. And obviously kind of then personally I've had my fair share of ambulances out at Christmas. What's really nice is my youngest cousin. He's kind of really good with my seizures and with my kind of thing. So he knows that I need to take medication before I eat. So he'll kind of like bring my tablets to me and kind of go, Naomi, it's time to take your tablets, and he'll bring me a drink with him as well. And like we've taught him how to deal with my seizures, or if I was to faint, because secondary to my hypermobility disorder is a condition called POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So I am prone to fainting as well as seizures. So I have a lot of kind of like blank moments. I have Christmases where I kind of can't remember much about them. But we try and keep them as low-key as possible. And one of the things I would as a tip to people is, if you struggle with noise sensitivity, is to invest in some noise cancelling earplugs. I find them really helpful, and also to have a nice place where you can have time out. So for me that's my bedroom. So I kind of create kind of like a calming place to go where I can get some kind of quiet and some time out and some time to myself, just to just breathe. Because when you've got people going around all the time, and I think as well kind of I do struggle with my mental health, and when you've got people around all the time, it can get a little bit like overwhelming, because it's almost like, I think as well with your physical health, you're trying really, really hard to kind of keep up with everything that's going on at Christmas, but your body just can't keep up with everything. And I think what's difficult is that kind of sadness, because you kind of like have to say, I can't do this activity, this event, I can't see these people because my body just won't allow it today. Or that frustration of having an ambulance out on Christmas Day, and the guilt of like the expense of the NHS, and obviously how it impacts on your family, because your family have to kind of like work around your health problems. And it's kind of like, and I think for me with New Year as well, it's that loss of kind of like a year gone where I've been ill and not much has really happened in my life, and the thought of another year ahead of dealing with my chronic health problems and all that entails, and my life probably not going like very far again.
Yeah, like most people who don't have chronic illnesses, they're like, new year, new start, new me. And we're just like, we can't really do that. We don't just like get to not have a chronic illness. And that's kind of damaging to us sometimes, because we think, oh yeah, this year is going to be great. And then 2 months later, you're in hospital or something.
So what would your tips be to people living with chronic illness on coping at Christmas?
I actually, when we have like a big family, especially on my mum's side, so when they're all around, there are like 15 people or something, and I actually tend to do all the cooking because it's just me. Like, I'm like, oh, I'll do this and everyone else can chat. So like having some time away is definitely a big thing.
And do you have to decide what events you go to and which ones you sit out of just to manage your kind of like symptoms?
I do, but I kind of ignore all of that at Christmas.
Right.
Which obviously isn't very healthy, but I'm like, I want to do this and I want to do this. And I kind of just force myself through it. And then I spend all the time in between just like lying in bed, watching telly or something.
Yeah, that is a hard thing about Christmas because there is so much going on, and you as kind of like a person want to kind of keep up because you don't want for me, it's like I don't want my chronic illness to dictate my life.
Yeah.
And so like Naomi wants to keep up with everything, but Naomi's body isn't quite in sync with what Naomi wants to do. So like I usually put up the Christmas tree, but now my dad helps me. And even that just like was too much. And I just spent the rest of the evening splat out in bed, because it just like flared up my ME and kind of like my FND. And I think as well, it's just like for me with my hypermobility problems, I have a lot of gastro problems. So it's trying to kind of like with Christmas dinner, it's trying to have a nice family meal without kind of like making my gastro problems really worse, and then kind of being in so much pain, and kind of then kind of being kind of like really kind of sick. And as well as kind of that, I struggle with chronic migraines. So and one of the triggers for my FND seizures is flashing lights. So I find kind of if like somebody puts the Christmas tree lights on flashing mode, it'll trigger seizures. Or if you kind of on the rare occasion, if I kind of see like a neighbour's window and they've got flashing lights, it's like, oh no, please don't do that.
Yeah, that was the same as me last year. I had a new trigger for my seizures, which was flashing lights. So whenever I'd have to leave the house, I put a jumper over my head so I couldn't see anything. Because like most people, when they set their lights, they don't think about, oh, this is flashing. They just think it looks really cool, which it does, but
Yeah,
not very
people
people who have seizures.
people think that strobe lighting is just what you get in nightclubs, but it can be anything like bike lights or Christmas lights, anything that like flashes over a certain amount is classed as a strobe light.
Like trees, like the sun shining through trees if you're going like 30 miles an hour or something. Like you wouldn't think that would be strobe lighting, but it is.
Yeah, I found that as well. But yeah, I definitely like one of the things I would recommend to people is to create a schedule for Christmas. I like schedules. I find them helpful to manage my energy levels. So I've got like a schedule for like Christmas cards and wrapping. Then I also will kind of make a schedule for what events are going on at Christmas so that I know like when I can have my rest periods, when I can do that event, how much of that event I can do, whether I do that event or not. And I really struggle with noise with my kind of ME and my autism, which is where the kind of like earplugs come in quite helpful. But also if I'm just needing just some rest and like there's a family gathering downstairs and I just need some quiet.
Yeah, I struggle with noise too. So I have like 3 different types of earplugs that help. And like at Christmas or like when there are loads of people around, kind of just move away. And like sometimes the noise is all right. So like I go to open mics when they're on, they're not at the moment because of COVID. And I'm fine with those. But simple things just like clapping or clicking your hands and people singing happy birthday on Zoom or something, I'll literally just stick my fingers in my ears because it just like, I can't really explain what happens. It's just really uncomfortable.
Yeah, I find noise painful, like physically painful. And like at the moment with like one of our neighbours is doing some construction work, so I've had my earplugs in most of today just to kind of like tone down the construction noise. But yeah, it is difficult, and I think it's like family that you don't see very often trying to understand your limitations. And I think sometimes like, or just like, I don't know, just on like social media or like people who don't understand just think kind of like you being rude or you're just being a bit of a Scrooge because you're not kind of fully participating in Christmas.
Yeah, like with my EDS, I also have gastro issues. And one time we were out in a restaurant and the waitress said, "Oh, is she a picky eater?" And we just like kind of glared at her and she went away. But I could only eat like 3 different things and none of them were on the menu. So I just sit there with a drink. But like at Christmas, you kind of want to be able to eat Christmas food. So sometimes I do, and then I pay for it for a few days with like stomach pain and everything. Or I don't and I feel like I'm missing out.
Yeah, I found that in restaurants before where I've had to order from the children's menu and then they're like, "But she's over the age of 10." And I'm like, "Well, I can only eat a child-sized portion." But then even like on the children's menu, I've got loads of allergies and intolerances. So it's trying to find so generally kind of like for the past for years now, I just haven't bothered with restaurants just because it's just like too noisy. And with my ME is classed as severe, so I'm mostly the vast majority of the time I'm housebound now, and this year I've become more bedbound. So that's going to be kind of even a bit more challenging with Christmas because most I won't really be able to travel to, like, for example, my uncle's house if they've got an event there. And then obviously with my ME being worse this year, it's more difficult on my energy levels and kind of like hypersensitivity.
it's like trying to do things but not do too much of things.
Yeah.
Like I'm lucky because when we have Christmas, like on my mum's side, the past couple of years it's been scheduled to be here, so I don't have to go anywhere. And my dad's is only like half an hour away, and he has like a small side of the family anyway. It's just like him, my stepmom, his parents. So there are only like 6 of us. And it's like small. And last year I was in my wheelchair all the time, so I could wheel around his house. It's like a lot more accessible than it is here. We have so many steps. And it was just like, I actually enjoyed last Christmas, even though I couldn't remember very much because of my seizures and my dissociation.
Yeah, I find because we've got quite a small family and they live in different parts of the country. So obviously with COVID this year, we're not going to be able to see family as much, which is helpful, but I feel horrible saying that.
Yeah.
Because obviously like Christmas is a time for family. But I think kind of like one thing that I found kind of Christmas aside is like for so long I've been housebound and I've not been able to kind of join in on social activities or like having to go to hospital appointments, and it just like knocks it out of me for days, and I'm having kind of like seizures on the ambulance that takes me to my appointments because I'm so tired out, because tiredness is the trigger for my seizures. And obviously ME and tiredness and seizures and tiredness, so I have kind of lots of seizures. So like this year, because lots of things have been more virtual, like hospital appointments have been via telephone or video link, it's been a lot more accessible. And I think kind of this Christmas, things will be more virtual, which will be a bit more accessible for kind of people with chronic illnesses.
Yeah, things being virtual is definitely like an upside to all of it. And I kind of feel horrible saying it, but at the same time, everything has got more accessible. And like, I hate phone calls, but not having to get up really early has just been amazing, like for hospital appointments and stuff. I mean, I had to get up at 6 o'clock the other day because I had to go in because I had an MRI, but the rest of the time I can literally just like wake up 5 minutes before and have the appointment in bed. It's definitely helpful. And also like having virtual Christmas with family, I think will help as well, because on my mum's side we have a giant family, and one of my mum's sisters and her children are in Hawaii. My mum's other sister and her children are in Germany, and all of it's like a big deal being able to see them on Christmas. So as well as it being Christmas, and Christmas is a big deal anyway, it's like the only time for a year or 2 years or something that we get to see them. So it's like a huge deal, the Christmas. And then it like puts more pressure on me to like join in things, even though like my mum says, oh, it's fine if I don't do this. I feel like I have to do it.
Yeah, same for us, because our family's spread out around the UK, Christmas is often the only time that we get to see them. So it's that kind of like pressure to kind of like spend as much time with them as possible, when actually I'm needing to be in bed resting. And one of the things we do in our family a lot at Christmas is play games. And I enjoy playing games, but it's obviously kind of like a bit disruptive when you're in the middle of a game and you kind of have like 3 seizures in the course of a game. And it's obviously kind of like I find it personally, for me, I find it quite embarrassing, having kind of like seizures so publicly, even though it is family. And I get really frustrated with myself because I just want to have like a normal Christmas. But because of like my seizures and my other symptoms, like I can't quite have kind of like Christmas in my pre-illness life, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like we want it to be how it was however many years ago before everything happened. And we try and live up to that, but it never goes well.
And I think I'm still working out Christmas because I first became unwell in 2013 whilst at uni, and then I had to drop out of uni because of my health. But I didn't get any, like my, in terms of like my ME, I didn't actually get my ME diagnosis confirmed until 2017. And like F&D had been questioned for several years, but it wasn't until I saw my professor in London in 2017 when he kind of like, because he's such a specialist in F&D, that he kind of like confirmed that diagnosis. But it's just kind of, I'm just like, so it's just kind of still trying to work out how to live with the condition. And
even
it's always changing.
Yeah, like one Christmas you can do however much stuff and you have these symptoms, and the next Christmas it can be completely different, and that like goes on a day-to-day basis as well.
Definitely.
But especially with like things that happen once or twice a year, you in like one day, like let's say last Christmas, I worked out how I could manage those symptoms, and then this Christmas it'll be completely different, so I can't even use those coping mechanisms or anything.
Yeah, it's the same for me. Obviously, like I mentioned earlier, like my ME's worse this year, so it'll be different to how I managed last Christmas.
Yeah.
And my brother is kind of visiting, and as much as I love my brother, he is so like, he's the life and soul of the party. And a couple of Christmases ago, he got too impatient with, because it takes me quite a while to get out of bed and wake up. And he got too impatient and he gave me a fireman's lift downstairs because he wanted to open presents, which is typical him. And he like my dad and my dad's going a bit deaf in his old age, though he doesn't realise it. So he plays his music quite loud, and my brother plays his music quite loud. And then obviously, like, if I say to my brother, I've got a migraine, can you turn the music down? He's like, you had a migraine yesterday. And I'm like, well, that's because they're chronic and I have migraines about 20 times a month. So it's kind of like family understanding your needs and working around your needs, as well as trying to work out your own needs and things like that. And kind of going back to kind of like tips is ensuring you've got enough medication to get you through, like, and medical supplies to get you through Christmas.
Yeah,
I've got some medical supply ordering to do, just to make sure that I'm not going to run out of medical supplies and medication over Christmas.
I hadn't even thought about that. Like, I have 2 weeks. I like order my medication 2 weeks before I run out, and I get it through pharmacy to use, so it's all posted to me. And it's only been like the past few days that it's occurred to me I haven't got the prescription I ordered last week, and it'll be because of all the Christmas post. I'm gonna have to, even though I always sort out my medications on a Sunday evening, and like I go through, put them all in the pill holders, and then like do the orders for which ones I need. I'm gonna have to go through again and work out, well, I need these ones now because my doctor's not going to be working over Christmas and over New Year.
So I think kind of I wanted to try and keep it as short as possible, just because I know we have low energy levels, and just need to try and kind of get on with our day. And obviously, for me on my YouTube channel, I subtitle everything. So that takes me extra energy. But is there anything else that you wanted to bring to this collaboration for your channel, or any other tips you have for people?
I don't think so. I should have written down some tips before I started.
I did have some, and I don't know what I did with them, which is typical me.
Yeah.
But I did remember some things. I did remember the medication, and I remembered having a quiet place, and I remembered earplugs. So that's so I think I did well remembering 3 things, because normally I can't remember something I did 5 minutes ago, and that's because I have a lot of like absent seizures. So like my memory is just a bit kind of like wiped. Like I'll have an absent seizure and then I'm like, what are we doing? I don't know. Where am I? Who are you?
Yeah.
And I think as well, it's kind of like, as well, for me, like I use a wheelchair and it's trying to kind of get access as well. So it's just like when you've got decorations, like my dad put a tree in a place which he thought it was a really good place, and then we realised that I couldn't get my wheelchair like past the tree in the table. But it is nice to like enjoy the nice things about Christmas and to try and put your illness aside as much as you can, to try and kind of like, because my friend has this saying where your life is like a piece of cake and you've got 10 portions, but only one portion is your health. So it's trying to kind of like, at Christmas, it's trying to put your health aside, focus on kind of like everything else.
Yeah, like without forgetting about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for doing this collaboration with me.
Thank you for asking me.
It's been a bit disjointed, but hopefully we've kind of put something together that will be helpful for people to watch and understand how to cope with Christmas and our experiences and things like that. Bye for now.
Bye.